Welcome back, everyone, for the next block of presentations today for ANZREG. My name is Sean, I'm on the committee, and it is my pleasure today to introduce our next two presenters. So we have both from the University of New South Wales. We have Bill, who, to use his own words, has been a MARC data wrangler since 1995 and is currently the Manager Electronic Resources and Data Quality at Uni New South Wales, where he leads a team importing and cleaning up metadata into Alma. We also have Karl, who is a senior team member within the Electronic Resources Unit at the University of New South Wales Library. He works in a data management quality capacity in electronic resources. And today, our gentlemen today will be presenting using MARCEdit as an alternative to normalization rules. I'm now going to turn off my microphone and my camera, and gentlemen, I leave it with you.
Thank you, Sean. We would like to acknowledge the Bedigal people that are the traditional custodians of this land where we are presenting from today. We would also like to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present here today. I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. All right. Can you see that, Karl?
Nope.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We don't usually use Zoom. Okay, we're on now. Okay. Ella was discussing how libraries conducted show and tell sessions just before, and I was pleased with the results that you've had. This will also be a show and tell. So we are, in Ella's words, reaching out and showing how we do things. We will show you how UNSW is using MARCEdit as an alternative to normalization rules in some instances, and some of the other ways that UNSW is using MARCEdit. Don't get me wrong, normalization rules have their place. We've found that they're very useful for when we have the same changes that are going to be made to records on a regular basis. For example, we add a local field to bibliographic records of books and journals that are on Leganto reading lists. Each week, an analytics report finds the titles on the Leganto reading lists that don't have this local field, and then we add that field using a simple normalization rule. This field then tells us the title has been used in a course, and this will be useful in the future when we are considering whether to weed that physical title or not. We also use normalization rules for running over single records when we are editing those records one at a time. For this, we use the enhance the record function with the normalization rules in there. For example, if we digitize a book and add an Alma D representation, we take the bib record for that print book, we duplicate it, and then change this new record from a print book record to a short record, which we then suppress, and then we can add the Alma D representation to that record. So we're doing the same thing every time. And so we just use the enhance the function, enhance the record function with a normalization rule in there. So in summary, we use normalization rules on records that are already in the collection and where the same changes are going to be made each time. But for most other purposes, we use MARCEdit. We use MARCEdit mostly to work on records before they go in Alma, and also to clean up metadata on existing records where the changes needed depend on what metadata is in the record each time. So what records would you want to work on before they go into Alma? As Bree said earlier, we don't rely on activating community zone bibliographic records for our purchased monograph titles. We bring the records in from the vendors, for example, from Springer, Taylor and Francis, etc. Or we use the OCLC collection manager for various packages and for front files. We use Gobi for purchasing our single monograph titles, and we receive records from Gobi for those single titles. So we have the records coming to us before we put them in Alma. So I'm going to hand over to Karl to demonstrate and discuss how we use MARCEdit to work on a typical file of records that we have coming from a vendor before we put them into Alma. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to Karl.
Where am I? Hello, everyone. I hope that everyone can hear me. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Let me just share my screen again. We are new to Zoom, and there we go. So this is my MARCEdit screen. So you may be familiar with normalizations in Alma, but it's sometimes quicker and honestly much simpler, especially when you're working with smaller batches of records to make some global changes using MARCEdit. You can see your work as you go and even start all over again if you make a big mess. This is the workflow that we often use for single records, in addition to what Bill mentioned about normalization for single records, or batches of records from publishers that are only occasionally loaded. For example, the file that you can see here, so it would actually help if I opened it. There we go. There's some lovely MARC for you. This file is, this was downloaded from the IET website. Contains 60 odd records from books that they published back in 2000, I can't even say it, 2022. So I might take a big risk and demonstrate some live functions. Just keep in mind through this what it would take to get this done with a normalization. So let's just throw in a local field. We'll call it $A purchase information, and bang, that's added to all, what was 63 records, in fact. We use that to show, in our system, the 980 field shows purchase details of the package to which that title belongs. Because we don't, as Bill said, use the community zone for outright purchases, we like to know when and how we purchase the titles. So we have 980 as a searchable indexed field in Alma so that we're able to gather titles into a set using this field when we need to. So I'll just clear that. Whoops. And it's just as easy to delete a field. So I'll delete that now. Again, easy to do. And I might as well demonstrate that you can very easily see, and I'll just do titles, in fact. It's easy to interrogate the file using MARCEdit so that you can see and sort and do everything that you need to do just in this one screen, as well as you can even make a copy of that list if you need to. So actually, I'll do that again. And I'll show that this particular functionality is also useful to help weed out inconsistencies within that data. So if I, for example, sort this, you can see, oh, it all looks pretty good until you in fact see that this particular URL is missing its first H. So when that gets into Alma, that's obviously not going to work. So we could even jump to that and fix it on the fly. So now we know that all of the URLs in that particular record are consistent and valid URLs. We could also, something we also commonly do with normalizations is vandalize the indicators in 856 fields so that they don't display in Primo. Easily done. We just put X's in there. You can also, you could do a special undo. That undoes the last thing that you wanted to do. So now you can see that that's just undone that. And you could also introduce some RDA fields, which only takes a moment. And that can help improve the display of that in both Alma and in Primo. So UNSW uses MARCEdit in this way to clean up questionable metadata on existing records. We export the records from Alma to MARCEdit, where we can clean them up and overlay them back into Alma, a task that otherwise might be performed by a pretty complicated series of normalization jobs. For consistency in our records and to streamline this work, we have what the authors of MARCEdit have termed assigned tasks, where the same actions can be executed on all records. For example, a common function in our assigned tasks that's generally run over all of the incoming ebook records checks for things like the 008 position 23 being an O, which helps Primo identify the record as an electronic book. We could write a normalization that does all of this and all manner of things, but we can achieve this before the record even touches Alma and without then having to spend time cleaning up a new mess. For vendors where we might be uploading monthly, we could set up an assigned task specifically for that vendor where those records contain repeated and consistent issues that could use ironing out. Let's close this set of records and open another record. This record is from Springer. You may be familiar with their generally not terrible records, but I'm going to run an assigned task on this. We often just get hundreds of these particular records every month, and so we have this assigned task for Springer, which makes some pretty significant changes to the record, and they're just sort of delineated there. But to actually look at the list of tasks within, and of course it opens on the wrong screen. Here we go, and it still opens on the wrong screen. This is the list of actions that are completed against that record within this assigned task. Here's the O and the 008 that I mentioned earlier. We'd impose that just to make sure that it's there because publishers just can just be so inconsistent. Then we're cleaning up some qualifiers. We're removing some things, making some changes to things, and imposing some consistency across URLs. What else are we doing? We're deleting a bunch of stuff. We're adding our local fields. Earlier on, I mentioned our 980 field that we used for storing purchase data, and we'll run some RDA at the end. And so that is what we end up with. If I could compare them side by side, I would, but there's been some pretty significant changes made to that particular record. Let's see. I've lost where I'm up to. So yeah, we have refined this particular assigned task over time as we react to improvable data within Springer's metadata. I'm trying to be diplomatic. In comparing and contrasting these functionalities, we often find it easier and quicker. I've written easier 2 times. How wonderful. It's just easier for our staff to build and run these MARCEdits, assigned tasks rather than run complex or even multiple complex normalizations. So I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm going to hand it back to Bill as soon as I can figure out how to. I think I click that and that. Nope, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm on the wrong screen. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Here we go. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Karl. Okay, I'll just, in summary, some of the advantages of using MARCEdit is that, as Karl showed you, we can see the whole file at once and we can interrogate it to see what's in the records and find any inconsistencies there. We can run changes easily as we can go through field by field through the records. We can backtrack with a special undo, or if you make a total mess, just not save the file. And also I found that because we're working outside Alma, we find it safer and we can work more freely and experiment with the metadata. Okay, another function of MARCEdit that I mentioned in the program is creating MARC records from Excel spreadsheets. It's not something we have used very often, but we have found it useful. For example, I used it in the past to create Alma records for a manuscript collection, where all I had was a spreadsheet of information. Okay, so here is an example from a list of titles I received from a vendor. Oh, yes. Okay. I'll just go to here and just a moment. I'll just show you what I meant. Just a moment. Input. Open. Oh, sorry, wrong thing. Okay. I had an Excel spreadsheet where it had vendor titles, and just a moment. I've lost myself here now. Sorry about that. Input. Open. Okay, I'll start again. The source file. Okay. And so it's an Excel spreadsheet. We'll see it soon. And the output is going to go into a MARC records. And at the beginning, we can edit what the leader is going to look like. For example, as a book, it'll have a little A there. If it's a visual material, you'll have a little G there. If it's going to have serials, it'll have a little S. We'll just make them books. A nice little functionality is that the 008 date can be, shift $264C, and we'll import the file, and that's the Excel spreadsheet with all the information in it. Okay. What you can do now is for each of these fields, you can, what they say, add the argument. So field 2, we could make it the 020 $A, for example, and it goes down there, and you can just work your way through the fields. When you've done that, you can actually save it as a template. I've done that to save us the trouble. Load the template, and it is here. There it is there. I've done it all. These numbers down here tell me the fields. The little stars tell me that to put them together, concatenate them together, and we can finish. And there's our output. Can be seen. I will just open it. Output. There it is. Okay. You're all going to shriek and say, oh, how terrible it looks. But remember, I just had a spreadsheet, and this was in the first row of the spreadsheet, and you'll notice that the $264C is now in the 008C 2021, and so on. And now we can just go through and add fields and edit fields and so forth to do that. Okay. So that's just a small example. I'm sure you can think of examples yourself in your own institution. Another use of this functionality is where you have information you want to add to an existing set of records. So you can have a spreadsheet with a list of MMS IDs in column A, and in column B, you can have the information you want to add to each record. And then you can make short MARC records with 2 lines in each one, and then merge them with the Alma records, matching on the MMS IDs. And I'm just going to show you now that merging. I hope I'm giving you lots of good ideas as to what to do. Okay. The example I will use is adding subject headings to Alma records where we don't happen to have subject headings. So I look for some records in our Alma that don't have subject headings, and here they are. I'll just a minute. There we are from Alma, and we can see they don't have any subject headings. I know that because I can do a Control F equals 6, and there's nothing there. Okay, there's no tags that start with a 6. Okay, I'm going to close that. So what I've done, I've got all the ISBNs out of that list, and I'm going to search in another functionality of MARCEdit is you can do Z3950 searches, and we've set it up for WorldCat, and this is my list of ISBNs, and we can just search, and now it's searching. Oh, I've just got to tell it where to put them. Just a minute. Wrong place. That's it. Okay, now it's searching. Searching those ISBNs, as you can see, sometimes you'll get more than one record in WorldCat just from those ISBNs. Okay, won't take long. Okay, come on, finish for me, please. Okay, and it nicely tells me that I get 0 results for one of those ISBNs. How nice of it. So I'm going to download. There it is there. Okay, I'm going to save it. So you saw before that I had the source file is just a moment, I'm just going to pop into here. The source file is what we have from Alma. The merge file is what we got from WorldCat. And we're going to put them together and combine them. And this is where we're matching on the ISBNs. Remember, I used the ISBNs from before. And I'm going to tell it I want to just bring across the 600s, the 610s, the 650s, and the 651s. And there we are. Okay, and I'll do a Control F, and I'll go equals 6. Remember, we got nothing before. Now we get heaps. Okay, these are all the subject headings that have come from WorldCat and are now in an Alma record. And we know they're Alma records. See the 001? They're our MMSIDs. Let's go back to Control F. Okay, we can see all these subject headings, and if we don't like some of them, we can, as Karl used before, we can get rid of, for example, ones with vocabularies that we don't want. We don't want ones that have a second indicator of 6 or a second indicator of 4. I will just 6. So I've got a second indicator 6, get rid of them all. Don't want them. We can also, remember we had 105 records. So there's bound to be some duplicates, subject headings in there. And there they are. There's one there. So we can just remove the duplicate data, delete field. Let's get rid of another 14. Now, I'm sure many of you can write a regular expression that can clean up all these subject headings nice and easily. And some of you find regular expressions as simple to write as I can write a sentence, but I'm not one of many of you guys. So I would go through it do the Control F and have it and look back all the time. And then I would just send them back to Alma. Okay. So we use this merging of records function. Recently, get rid of you. We use this this merging function recently when we brought in IATS's subject headings that were in Trove records into our Alma records. So what we found was Trove records that had our holdings and had IATS's headings, and downloaded those Trove headings, Trove records into MARCEdit. We stripped out all the subject headings that were not IATS's headings, and then we were able to match those Trove records with our Alma records, merging on the MMSID, which is as a holding statement in Libraries Australia in Trove. So we matched on the 001, and we got them there. And so we got a lot of IATS's headings, subject headings, out of Trove and into our Alma using that merge records function. So the purpose of our talk was just to show you all how UNSW has been using MARCEdit in our work. I'm sure there are other ways to do what we've shown you with other programs, and there are much more complex things you could do with MARCEdit. But MARCEdit gives us more options to work on this data. It's simple to use, and we found that for all our staff. It's also safer to use. So we can edit the records out of Alma, then sit back, have a look at the file, discuss it with others, with the team before exporting back to Alma. So we clean up our records. So we use it in a way that we import and clean up our records. Okay, and we're more confident with editing metadata because we can feel free to play with the data and make mistakes as we go along outside of Alma. If we relied on using the normalization rules, we'd always have in the back of our head, although we can preview those rules, the results of rules, we're never quite sure if it's gonna work like you want, and undoing the mistakes would be a lot more difficult in Alma. So that's why we use MARCEdit outside Alma. And so that's what we do at UNSW. I'd like to wrap up now and see if there's any questions. Are there any questions for us, Sean?
Thanks for that, Bill and Karl. It's Lorraine. I really enjoyed that presentation. Sorry. I'm a bit of a MARCEdit nerd myself, so I thoroughly enjoyed that. We do have a few questions. From Catherine, curious about your motivation behind noting Leganto use on bib records. Is this because of limitations with Leganto analytics?
Not at all, no. We've been putting those indicators in the bib records for many, many years now, even before Leganto. So it's just a 950 to tell that we're using it in a course. No, we use analytics, Leganto analytics, quite a lot actually, for various things, and to be another something to show and tell some other time. No. We just find for collection management purposes, I use that when I'm thinking about doing an analytics to maybe weed something. Has it been borrowed in the last so many years? That sort of thing. And if it's got that little indicator, I know it's been on a course, so we should keep at least one copy of it.
Okay, we've only got about a minute left,
Yep.
so we'll get through as many as we can.
Okay.
It's okay with you. If we don't get through all of them, can we provide the questions to you later and circulate it through the ANZREG list your answers?
Yeah, sure. I didn't realize I had so many questions. That's terrific. Thanks very much. Wow.
So this might be the last one. Yelena has asked, is there a way to automate the process so the editing isn't manual per file, but part of purchasing workflow auto-triggered?
I really don't think so. I mean, if you were automatically loading your MARC files into Alma using FTP or something, it'd need to be a function of Alma in order to do that. And obviously MARCEdit's an external program. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. There is a few more, so we might just record those and send them to you to answer, and that would be fantastic. Thanks.